Hey there, I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. Often random, but always relevant, always real, and practically nothing is off limits. This podcast is for you. Are you ready for this? Let's do it. Welcome back to the program, guys, and thank you for joining us on the podcast. And remember, you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, Threads, and YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and smash all those subscribe buttons. Listen, recently I had the opportunity to sit down in a very good conversation with Jacksonville City Councilman Jimmy Peluso of District 7. And if you're not familiar with District 7, it is a very expansive district. It's stretched out amongst very diverse neighborhoods. It runs from the Riverside, which is south of the river that runs through the St. Johns River in Jacksonville, Florida. And then you have the urban core, the downtown area proper, and you have Springfield, and then further on up Main Street, and it has lots of suburbs and lots of urban living. Well, the city of Jacksonville, as with many large cities, are going through throughout the country now, are going through issues with affordable housing. A lot of things have changed, particularly in the state of Florida, with the building of affordable housing, infill development, and those kinds of things. And so Councilman Peluso, Jimmy, sat down with me, and our first segment here, we talked about affordable housing, we talked about infill development, and a number of other things. Let's listen in.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you kind of put it that way, because I received a lot of mailers during the campaign from all the at-large candidates, as well as people running for property appraiser and everything else. And all of them talked about affordable housing, or about making sure that we have more affordability for where people are living. And it's just, it's funny because people could talk about it all day long, but are they willing to do what's necessary to kind of make sure that we are setting ourselves up as a city for the next 50 to 100 years, right? One of the things that I'm sure Josh talked about is the special fund that they're creating with the help of the administration, the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund. I think it's about $40 million. It's going to go into affordable housing projects. And the other big question we must ask ourselves is, what is affordability, right? So if you're paying over a third of your salary to rent, you're already placing yourself in an undue burden, and it's kind of frustrating, because we really fought hard for the fight for $15 minimum wage. But even if you have a $15 minimum wage job, you're still only making a little over $28,000 a year. So that means that your rental needs to be, $400 to $600 maybe, unless you cohabitate with other people, which it's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. I've had roommates for years, but it's just a matter of where are we going to be building more housing, and is it really going to be affordable? And that's a major concern of mine, because I do have the urban core, and I don't want to keep building out and out and out, and I don't want to see more sprawl. And so as we do continue to sprawl, I think it's up to us to change our zoning code and our land use laws. Our comprehensive plan is the way you do that, to make sure that as we do build out, that we're building very different products than just these giant gated communities or HOAs like we see. And meanwhile, for the urban core and for different parts of kind of the more, what I would call the more urban portions of our city, we need more infill development. So if there's empty lots, we need to find and entice developers to build good products there. Duplexes, quadplexes, triplexes. I live in Riverside, Avondale, and there are multi-million-dollar homes 2 doors down from an apartment complex, or from a quad, or several quads. And so we really need to get people's mindsets away from the idea that the housing needs to look only a certain type of way. You must have a yard. You must have a giant garage. You must have this and that. we need to break that cycle and tell people, no, there are different products out there that the market could easily sustain and that people would definitely want to move into.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've done, and it's not like it's embedded in law or anything, but almost
Sure.
every major development that gets done in my district, the developer usually comes to my office. And I specifically say, how much are these units going to be worth? I fully expect you to have some of those units to be 80% AMI, 60% AMI. And that's area median income. Like I specifically tell the developers that, and I say, I really don't want you to kind of build something so large if you're not going to set away 10% or 20% of your units for a specific thing. So that's just been me in the early months of my time, impressing upon developers what they should expect when they come to see me and what they should expect in District 7. All that to say, what Josh and his team are working on, and I've submitted my own framework for them to kind of work on, is that I think we should offer different tiers of incentives to certain developers, especially within like the downtown overlay or within sort of within these infill development areas, because it really is expensive to do infill. It's expensive, but on the other end, all the infrastructure is already there. So there's kind of there's a give and take to what could be easier. But most developers, just like anything else in the free market, they go for what's easy. And so if I could buy 40 acres in the middle of nowhere, rezone it, and then build a cookie cutter item, I'm going to do that. So we need to we need to incentivize developers to look inwards, as well as, hey, we'll give you a certain amount of money if you do 10% or 10% of your product is affordable housing, 20% is affordable housing. We'll give you this much money. We'll give you this much less as a rev grant, which is like a tax abatement. So there's like different ways we can do that. And I'm looking forward to his shop releasing that table or what that's going to look like moving forward. The other thing that I can say is in conversations I've had with the Jaguars, I've specifically said, if you're going to build in Lot J or if you're going to build anywhere near the stadium and it's going to be housing units, you better have 20% at the very least set aside for workforce housing and affordable housing. And I told them specifically 80% AMI. I think that's important, not only just for us as a city, but for them, because they're going to have the Four Seasons. They're going to have a ton of, hopefully a bunch of retail options right there. Their folks are going to need to live somewhere, and we don't want those people to live way in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't make sense. So I've already gotten verbal commitments. Mark Lamping said, like, we hear you loud and clear, council member. He at a public meeting, he specifically said, Councilmember Peluso talked about affordable housing. We heard you loud and clear. We're going to be doing that. So stuff like that at least gives me hope. Now, we got a long road to hoe when it comes to the Jaguar Stadium. On Stockton, there's Nacho Taco, which has really good vegan tacos. All of which are in the district. Point is, I don't know, man. Can we get more? I don't know. But,
we went further on to discuss a lot of things about the city and development in town, to include one of the projects that he is involved in, particularly within his district, is the Laura Street Trio and some of the urban developments going on, which is, as an overseer, he is part of the Downtown Investment Authority. And so we talked about that. Listen in.
Well, look, I mean, I'm the Downtown Investment Authority liaison. When I came into office, I knew I wanted to be heavily involved in downtown development. I tried to stop a really bad project in La Villa. Look, there's a lot in the pipeline right now, and there's some criticism against Lori that I understand, but overall, she kind of had one hand tied behind her back the moment she stepped in. There was a ton of bad deals with our parking garages that DIA was on the hook for. So, like, we were forced to pay to have someone else manage these parking garages for us. It was a sweetheart deal for them. We had a lawsuit. So a lot of the DIA money had to go to paying off those parking companies. So that was just kind of a miserable process from the get-go. Like I said, I think Steve Atkins and a lot of other developers are kind of these mom and pop operations that don't know what they're doing. We now have real developers in the field, like the Gateway Project, which is going to be doing this awesome project on Pearl Street. That's going to start this year. We're going to see cranes in the air on this year to see one of the first new high-rises built in downtown Jacksonville. I just felt like a countdown about Sorry, Cathedral Arts Lofts are being built right now. That's going to be an affordable housing project that's going to be completed by I think by summer. So that's huge. That's several hundred units that are going to be online. The Doro unfortunately went up in flames. That we can't blame that on Lori. And then we have, I know it kills me. And then we have the related group, a group out of Miami that's going to be doing a project over on the South Bank. They just provided a new package of incentives that they're looking to see. Now, where I do understand criticism is, hey, maybe there hasn't been as much transparency as we hope to have seen. And I do think that's kind of real. But I also think that because we're a consolidated government, it's really difficult for 19 council members and the mayor to focus on this smaller part of our city, which is downtown. Many of them, they're from the west side, they're from the north side, they're from the beaches, they're from Mandarin. They might not have the same political will to see money go into downtown the way that I do. And I moved back home in 2015 after serving in the Navy because I wanted to see Jacksonville grow. I wanted a downtown that was vibrant and that would attract young professionals. So I think that I don't know if she'll be around for all 4 years of Donna's term. I don't think she will, and I don't think she plans to. But let's have her finish up some of these projects that she started, and let's kind of see the momentum that I think we're building. To toss her out now, I think it's a bit premature because now she has a mayor she can actually work with. The Curry administration was not helpful. They were fighting them tooth and nail. They were constantly getting in their own way, and they tried to blow up the Lot J deal. So that was kind of a mess. And then we're seeing what they did with JEA as well. That was kind of a mess too. That took up a lot of brain power. So a lot still needs to be done, right? As for downtown as a whole, though, I really want to see focus between Liberty and Broad, and basically south of Duval, which is where the city hall is. That's kind of your old urban core. That's where I really want to see a lot of incentives and a lot more development. There's some really cool projects. Corner Lot's going to be doing something in the old Hogan building, and then a couple from Colorado who also come in with equity. They're developers up in Colorado and they're developing here. They own a property on Hogan as well that they're going to be doing a mix of adaptive reuse and then new construction. It's called The Den. It's Ellen and Jim Wiss. That's also going to have an affordable component. So there's a lot going on. And we also have JU is about to build their law school here.
I know. That's fabulous.
I'm super excited. It is because now you've got individuals, working downtown. They're going to be living in some of these properties that are being built up now. In fact, we've had a few developers specifically say we're building this to be basically de facto housing for JU students. Then you got all these law practices right here, as well as the courthouse. So I'm super excited about that. There's a lot coming, and I think by the time of the mayor's second term starts, we're going to see so many cranes in the air. And if we don't, then call me a liar. But I've been critical of some of the stuff going on downtown, but I feel like we're really hitting that place now. Things are starting to.
And we went on to discuss some very important legislation, a bill that he co-sponsored, the anti-hate legislation, which has been a big deal in North Florida for some time. So let's listen into that.
No, I'm really glad you brought it up. I'm really proud of it. So after the Newtown massacre, and that's what I call it. It was also, it was in Hyde Park, but the massacre over at the Dollar General, where we had an individual from Clay County who was deranged and sick, who wanted to drive up to Duval County and kill black people. He wrote that in his manifestos and his many journals, and the sheriff said so. So we all got together. We were all there. Every politician, from here to eternity, including the governor, was there to say how awful it was, and it was, of course. Like, it was an attack on our community. But the point is, when the cars drove off, that community is still sitting there, and a lot of us went away. And so I kept hearing time and time from my constituents, and Newtown, parts of Newtown are in my district. EWU is in my district. And many individuals come up week in and week out in front of our city council, and they say, it's been so many weeks. It's been so many months since those 3 beautiful angels were murdered. What are we doing about it? So I've spoken with our general counsel's office, and I try to try to find some kind of way to present an anti-hate bill that would really
Sure.
kind of restrict the kind of monstrous individuals who are spreading hate in our community and allowing folks like this individual down in Clay County to think it's okay to do what he did, right? Time and time again, I'm afraid that that we are enabling or allowing these creeps and these weirdos to do the actions they're doing because there's no repercussions, right? Outside of Disney, we see neo-Nazis flying DeSantis flags and swastikas. And they're able to do it for several hours, and they get in their car and they drove home. So my bill, which took me months to get written, but it's going to be filed this week, allows for restrictions on signage, on noise. So if you've got a blowhorn, as well as litter. So if you've got pamphlets that you're throwing in people's homes, and we saw it in Mandarin. In Mandarin, they had they had swastikas, and they were talking about anti-Semitic stuff. And then up in Murray Hill, the KKK was putting out stuff talking about lynching and killing African Americans. And like, if we find those individuals, now we can put them in jail. And if we do find them, so if we force them to pay something, they pay 3 times more than what they did if there was a hateful message to what they were doing. So if you are on the side of the road and you've got a sign, or if you project something on the side of a building, you can now go to jail for that. And I'm incredibly excited about that because I know we're never going to stop the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Facebook. We can't stop people being hateful, but we could show that our city is going to do everything it can to prevent hate. And at the very least, I didn't want to stop the moment I heard OGZ say, "Oh, we're worried about constitutional issues. We don't want to go over the line." And I said, maybe it's time that we at least start showing our community, there's now blood in the streets because of hate. Let's do something to show people that we're going to act. And now I'm proud to say that I think we are. I think we're ready to do it. I intend to have co-introducers. I hope it's going to be many co-introducers. So we're going to be sending that legislation out to everybody this upcoming week.
We also, I would like to say before I go on to the next segment, but that the anti-hate legislation that he is co-sponsoring in the North Florida area, Jacksonville, is much needed and long overdue. We went on to discuss one of the other older racist practices from not only Florida but in other cities as well, and that would be the topic of redlining, the redlining districts. And he gave us a good description of that and how we can, just move on. It's high time that people in the South started moving on, and in the country, from the redlining practices of the past. As Jimmy put it, the sins of our past. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if I could talk about my redlining bill, we just filed and passed a bill that that really kind of shows that the city's true acknowledgement of what redlining did in our city and our community.
Yeah.
So, for those of you unfamiliar with redlining, in the 1930s, the federal government passed the Federal Housing Act, and it created the Federal Housing Authority. And so they were backing mortgages made by banks, but the federal government sent out a notice to banks saying, hey, you could lend money to these places, but not to these places. And they specifically cited race as a reason why not to purchase or why not to help individuals purchase homes. So that's where, I think I have a map right over here. This is exactly what redlining looked like. And anywhere in red, the description was, this area is 100% black and has low lighting or no lighting, poor road conditions, sidewalks no sidewalks or very poor sidewalks, poor drainage, all these things, low unemployment or high unemployment, all of these things that still to this day, you could argue in some of those red line areas exist. So to think that in the 1930s, they decided how our city would look based on who banks could lend money to, is really kind of ridiculous and awful, and it's a horrendous thing that happened. And again, the effects of redlining still affect us today. So we've filed a resolution and passed it this past week on Tuesday, unanimously, I might add. So I'm very proud about that, addressing the sins of redlining. And again, similar to what happened in Newtown, we had members of the community come out multiple times saying, what are we doing about redlining? No one's talking about redlining. Why aren't we doing it? And as a district council member, if I have members of my own community talking about the same thing in tandem multiple times, it's incumbent upon me to do something about it.
Sure,
A
sure.
resolution doesn't solve the problem, but a resolution does. It allows for the city to acknowledge the sin of redlining and what it's done, and it says that we will address and focus on finding ways to fix and satisfy those problems. And frankly, consolidation also plays a role too,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure.
Consolidating
Yeah,
also kind of harmed those communities. So there's so much that was burdened upon a certain group of individuals in this city that wasn't burdened to others. And we need to try to correct that as best as possible. And I know that I'm working hard on it, and I certainly know the administration. They're looking to put in more dollars specifically in some of these communities.
well, you have a lot of
Yep,
stuff going on in the urban core that you I got to tell you, buddy, you got your hands full.
I do, I do. But I'm working hard on it.
Yeah,
We actually just submitted to Department of Transportation, and this isn't super sexy, but it's super fun for me. Beaver Street, Union Street, and State
yeah,
Street all feel like massive highways to me. So I'm asking DOT to allow us to make Beaver Street to take it down to one lane each way and put a bike pedestrian track through it. And then for Union Street, instead of it being a one way, I want it to have one 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 way this, one way east, one way west, with parking on either side
yeah.
to slow it down. And then for State Street, to make that a two lane, one way or the other. And the reason is, if you slow those roads down, it incentivizes developers to kind of come in and build on them. And
Sure,
frankly, Beaver Street is where
sure.
Gateway is going to be doing their first phase of construction. So it really kind of mirrors up to what they want to do. And Beaver runs right into Hogan. Hogan is a part of the Emerald Trail. So now imagine
Right,
being able to
right,
bike
right,
throughout
right.
so much of the city. And that's what we should be hoping to do. We want to get cars off the road. We want to put people on bikes. We want to put people on public transportation. It will reduce the amount of wear and tear on the roads, and it will reduce how much congestion and traffic and smog that we see. So there's a lot of cool stuff that I'm trying to do that's not even like sexy, right? Like I can't walk around saying, "Hey, everyone, who wants to make Union, a one way, both sides with parking?"
I know,
No one
I
gets
know.
excited about that, but I figured I would jump in and say that. And you're right, Springfield's doing great stuff, but also so is the Phoenix Art District, which is directly east of Springfield and directly
Sure,
north of
sure.
East Side. That's
Yeah.
being done by the folks that did Wynwood. So super.
During our discussion, we covered an awful lot of stuff. We covered the affordable housing, the infill development. We covered the downtown projects, and many of them that would be underneath the umbrella of the Downtown Investment Authority and his involvement with that, and the writing of the anti-hate bills and the redlining districts and the bills that he has written. That it's something that needs to be done. These are things that every large city that is growing, any city is going to have some of the same issues, right? But if you have a city the size of Jacksonville that takes up the entire county, the largest landmass city in the country, and it's constantly growing, it's swelling, it's bursting at the seams, and you need a proactive administration. You need a proactive administration that has a proactive council. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of councilmen in our city council in North Florida, in Jacksonville, that are very proactive and that are doing what is best for the community at large. And they are under the new administration of Mayor Donna Deegan, the first female mayor that Jacksonville has ever had, and she has become a real tiger. She has started all kinds of new peer groups new administrative, tasks, volunteers, diversity groups, and so it's a wonderful thing. And the woman is tireless and goes into the community on a regular basis to meet her constituents, as does our active city council members, Jimmy being one of them. So, if you'd like to see some more of Jacksonville's city council members on this program, let them know. Send them an email. Look them up. Your district. Look them up. Let's get them on the podcast. Well, that's a wrap. Another fantastic episode of the podcast. You can find us on all the social media platforms, wherever you surf, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, Threads, wherever. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. And on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, comment, and smash that subscribe button. If you're streaming audio for the podcast, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcast programs. In the meantime, I like to tell everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.